American P-47 Thunderbolts, fresh from the hands of the aviation workers who built them. They're headed now for a secret port of embarkation, a secret jumping-off place for the mounting battle of Germany. They'll cross the ocean by convoy, but they'll reach our air bases on Britain in the same perfect state in which they left the final testing line at home. Dismantled, greased, weatherproof, crated, yes, by hands skilled and trained. The precious man-hours sweated into these flying weapons will be perfectly guarded. At an English seaport town, they arrive without a scratch, with nothing lost. British hands take up where American hands left off, fitting back the part, grooming our Thunderbolts for their true element, the sky over burning Germany. Ready for its pre-battle test, the P-47 gasses up on American super octane, fuel for lightnings and thunderbolts and other sky rippers. Taxi tested. Pilot tested. And here are our Thunderbolts battling over target Germany. A Germany of smashed, burning cities, Hamburg, Berlin, Bremen, Schweinfurt. A battle of Germany pitting the best the Nazis can produce against the best we can produce.
This is one of our advanced supply depots on the mud-soaked Italian boot. Word has just come through from a group of our infantry doughboys that they've been out of food for 24 hours. They are in combat on the top of one of the surrounding hills. It's a hill riddled with American steel, yes, and stained with American blood. Because of the vast number of shells we had to pour into it before we could rout the Nazis out, the boys have christened it $2 million hill. That's an understatement. Brutal weather, mud, narrow foot trails rule out all machine power. To reach them, we have to return to mule power and the strength of a man's back. This is the slogging drudgery of war. This is a parade without flags or music. A group of hungry doughboys want food. There are no corner drugstores to go to on $2 million hill. No stepping out to a friendly lunch wagon where Mike sets out the Java and sizzling Franks. On this hill, if you step out, you meet a plate full of sizzling Nazi bullets. This isn't the usual 3 square. Right now, though, it hits the spot. They'll have that real meal later, back home, with the crowd, when all this is over. And we'll get it over. The whole 130 million of us. For this doughboy, there will be no old crowd to meet again. He won't be hungry anymore.
morning, in the time you spent brushing your teeth, planes of the Air Transport Command were busy flying a distance of 5,000 miles. Right now, in the time you spend looking at this issue, your air transport planes are flying a distance equal to twice around the world. And between this minute and this same time tomorrow, they will have carried their cargoes 120 more times around the world. Here's one for the books, about your ally China. The pay of a private in the Chinese Army is the equivalent of 52 cents a month. He has been fighting the Japanese for 6½ years. In these 6½ years, the Chinese soldier has earned $40.56 and the respect of the entire civilized world. This was our Navy when we entered the war. 1,076 ships, combat and non-combat. Many of these ships have since been sunk. The Pacific, the Atlantic, the Mediterranean. Question: how many ships do we have today? Answer: 14 times as many as we had when we started, thanks to the men and women working in United States shipyards.
General Marshall inspects the Army's Hawaiian Jungle Training Center. Some of these doughboys are training to replace the men who fought and died on New Britain, on Tarawa, on the Gilbert, the Marshall. Others will make up whole divisions to open up new fronts encircling Japan. Under simulated battle conditions, thousands of men learning every cunning, every trick to take vengeance on the treacherous Japs, to make them pay in blood for the lives of the Americans they tortured and murdered. Very soon, these very men will be hitting the beaches and jungles of Jap-held territory, and other men will take their places here. A stream of men, but just as important, a stream of equipment must go with these men to replace the staggering mountains of equipment lost, burned, and destroyed in combat.
Take it from the Marines, Tarawa was held. On the last day out, Father Francis Kelly celebrated Mass. 24 hours later, a lot of these fellows were dead. Every man aboard made his peace with God. Every Marine in the outfit, including the cameramen, knew as much about the operation as his CO. We were going out to take Basio Island, key to an atoll called Tarawa. D-Day was the 20th of November. There weren't any Jap airplanes around, but there's a Jap sub out there that the boys kept on the move. Our Army and Navy planes had been pasting the island for 5 days, and it didn't seem as though anyone on Basio could have lived through the bombing. And we weren't green. More than half of the task force were veteran pig stickers from Guadalcanal. The Navy pumped 2,800 tons of steel from Pennsylvania and Alabama in. We cut Tarawa open with stuff made in 48 states. Months of hard labor and precise machining went into this ammunition. We burned it up in minutes. Rabaul, the marshals, truck, and dozens of other Jap outposts will burn up millions more before the last shell is fired at Tokyo. The hand of every worker in America had touched some part of the mountains of equipment and supplies that were consumed in the destruction of this Jap garrison. The Japs were still answering our fire when we headed in. The water was choppy. These pictures of the first wave of Amtraks were taken about 1,000 yards from shore. We were heading straight in for the bloodiest operation in the history of the Marine Corps. But we thought it was going to be a picnic. That Jap gasoline came 3,200 miles from Tokyo. We'll soon replace it with gas from Texas, 6,000 miles away. Texas gas kept about 100 planes in the sky, blasting and strafing the Japs along the beach. The Japs began to get the range of the Higgins boat snagged on the reefs. We had to get out and wade 400 yards through terrific crossfire. A sniper was firing at these men. A few minutes after the landing, when the guys were hugging the beach, trying to get their wind after the 400-yard push, that piece of beach was all we had. That was our line for the rest of the day. In 1941, on Wake Island, a handful of unprepared Marines stood off a Jap task force for 16 days. For 15 months, these Japs on Tarawa had spent every day and night getting the island ready for this fight. But with the help of American-built equipment, we blotted out these sons of Tojo in 76 hours. We had the exits covered with machine gun and rifle fire, and the Japs kept coming out, trying to knock out the machine guns. Here comes one now. That sniper's got a beat on another. There's a squad of them. The camera tells the truth, but it doesn't give you any idea of how it smelled. And the smell on that island was bad. The wounded started going back 6 minutes after we hit the beach. The stretcher bearers, all members of the show, were the unsung heroes of Tarawa. Plenty of them got it. Stretcher bearers loaded the wounded onto rubber rafts and pushed them out to the Higgins boats off the reef. We couldn't leave them on the pier because of the snipers. We lost more than 1,000 dead and more than 2,000 wounded. On the third day, that Marine, the one without the helmet, was souvenir hunting when he found a couple of live Japs in that foxhole. The Japs lost 5,700 men, Imperial Japanese Marines, defending an island that wasn't 2 miles square. That gives you an idea of how important Tarawa was in their plan. Here's another spot where living, snarling rats are still dug into the ground. Blockhouses like this had 5 feet of concrete, buttressed with palm trunks, steel angle irons, sand, and coral rock. The Navy had tried to blast them out. The Air Force had tried to bomb them out. The Marines had tried to burn them out. But it took a bulldozer and a cat skinner to dig them out. This reception committee is all set for the first of these cornered Japs who decides to come out fighting. We brought in a few Japanese prisoners for intelligence. That sniper was nearly 6 feet tall. The prisoners had to be stripped to keep them from concealing weapons. They were sullen and hooked up over the idea that they were supermen, even after they'd been captured. The Japs brought these captured Koreans to Tarawa to work as slaves. On the same day we rescued them, Roosevelt, Churchill, and Chiang Kai-shek had guaranteed Korea her independence at the Cairo Conference. Thanksgiving Day. But we had a feeling that back home, the men and women who sent us the guns, the shells, and the Amtraks, the tools without which we never would have survived this day, were including us in their prayers. The wrecked Jap equipment we found had been brought in from all over, China, Malaya, Burma, Manchukuo. They had that 2x4 island loaded down with loot from every country they'd overrun. They even dragged captured British guns down from Singapore. None of it was much good to them after the second day of fighting, with the guns knocked out and the gunners dead. Almost immediately, Seabees were working on the 2 bomber strips on the island, and on the 4th day after we struck, Tarawa began to function as an advanced air base. Ensign Bill Kelly of Newcastle, Pennsylvania, brought in the first plane. The highly concentrated fighting on the bloody atolls of the Pacific gives vivid proof of the awesome price in men and materiel that must be paid for every forward step. We consume tons upon tons of the product of American hands and leave the wreckage lying beside the graves of the brave men who have taken their last step toward Tokyo. And to the survivors, we pledge an ever-growing stream of replacements being forged in war plants at home.